Verigin, who was instrumental in the formation of this organization in the very, very beginning. He and Ed Arana worked together, and Gary's going to share with us some of the professional interest, professionalism, some of the drive and learning, and drive and teaching. He's a wonderful example of what we can be and what we can do, and it's a pleasure to hear you right now.
Thank you very much. Hello. It's hard to imagine it's been 30 years. When I was like in my middle 40s, now I'm in my middle 70s. So this will be maybe about 20 to 25 minutes. So bear with me. So when my patients ask me what my favorite day of the week is, they'll always say Friday. And if you ask them why Friday, it's because we only work like a half a day. And I tell them that's really wrong. It isn't. My favorite work day is on Monday. Why Monday? Well, that's a day when people say things go wrong. There's more spousal abuse, more violence in the workplace, more heart attacks, bullying in school, and so forth and so on. So I tell them, on the contrary, the reason why Monday's my favorite day is because that's a day that I devote to reading and studying and researching articles on my favorite topics. And that would be looking at journals, looking at books, and looking at different websites that are devoted to alternative complementary functional medicine. And on the energy realm, what I look at is the German basic regulative system and the instrumentations of how you assess the biological terrain, and also how you monitor how you're doing with the biological terrain. So it's a time for me to kind of unbridle my imagination and also to enhance my intuition. So on Mondays, I have patients sending me emails. These patients are the ones who, at some point in time, have decided they're going to have their amalgams removed or their cavitations removed and operated upon, perhaps removal of their root canals, removal of implants, and removal of grafting materials. We have set these patients up with individualistic, customized protocols based upon my testing that I do myself in my office. And what we use is the functional blood chemistry analysis. We do bioterrain analysis, the biological terrain analysis. In Germany, it's called bioelectric Vincent. And then I also use electroacupuncture. So that's what we're doing is trying to enhance their auto-regulation, their basic regulation system, and enhance their greater defense system so that when they go under the rigors of amalgam removal and those other surgeries, that we're going to see better results with these people. The other reason why Monday is a special day is this is a day that Bill Glarus called me up with a phone call saying, would I want to speak before the academy to tell them, like, how did our academy start? And of course, I was delighted and gratified. I was honored, and I was very excited about doing this. The other thing is that I'm totally excited about what I'm seeing here. I haven't been to a meeting since Carmel, but I'm like saying, wow, I'm excited. I'm in total awe of what I'm seeing here for these 3 days, the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday. I've had several different people come up to me on the board of directors, the president of the academy, Joan, and I met, of course, like I said, the board of directors and many different people. And the orientation that was done by Glaros and Seagrave, right? Searoot and Margolis was outstanding, and I understand this is the first time that this has ever been done for the new members, and it was a classic. They did a fantastic job. I'm so impressed with the way the Academy is going, hearing Dr. Felix Lau talking about the journal, and members are going to start putting forth their cases and to show the world what's happening. The other thing that's so exciting to me is I see a world-class website that's going on. Dory, Rhoda, and my daughter Lisa are doing a fantastic job. There's going to be a monthly newsletter going on, and then the quarterly journal. So things are really exciting for me. So now allow me to tell the story of how this academy started from kind of a bare seed, bare root, rudimentary garage-style entity. And I often ask myself and pinch myself, did this start by chance? Did it start by an accident? Or perhaps divine intervention entered somehow? So I first met Ed Arana in 1970 at a gathering of a new study club that was being formed in Northern California. Ed practiced in Carmel Valley, approximately 200 miles away from me. He went to a different school, so we didn't know each other. And so we would see each other for 5 or 6 times for the study club. And the study club was devoted to nathology, and it was devoted also to functional jaw orthopedics. So Ed and I would kibitz and talk and laugh and have fun and talk sports and sort of things. But after about eight years, I decided that I wanted to look at different avenues. Different things were happening in our country at that particular time. And so I pulled out of the study club, and there was a patient who came to me who had moved from New York City to near Yosemite National Park. And she came out with the idea of setting up an academy or an institute called the Science of Being. She came to me to have her amalgams out. She was a very studious, intellectual, chatty woman, very friendly. And she would always sit down and she'd always have a book of some kind with different newsletters tucked into the book. And so she enticed me, she challenged me, and she said, I want you to subscribe to this particular newsletter. This newsletter was named the Brain Mind Bulletin. And this was authored by Marilyn Ferguson. And Marilyn Ferguson was a very interesting individual. And when I started reading the newsletter, what I saw that there was a kind of a movement that was going on, and there wasn't a name given to this movement, and it was a kind of a group of loose, enthusiastic, creative people in it who were wanting to, and they were, of course, they were from many different disciples. And what they were trying to do was they had a desire and they had a passion to create real and lasting changes in society and all the institutions, including medicine. So after reading that, eventually things evolved. She had like 10,000 subscribers, and they were worldwide. Her second newsletter then came out, and she had a real passion, a real enduring lust for studying the brain and the capabilities of the brain. And what she was most interested in was called the human potential of how the mind and the brain can conceive and work with creativity to work remembering and also in terms of wellness. So after reading that, that was called the Leading Edge newsletter, which she developed. So next came a book in 1980 called The Aquarian Conspiracy, which was published, again, like I said, in 1980, and this was her seminal work. It was considered at that particular time by USA Today newspaper as being the handbook of the New Age. It made the bestseller list all over the country and many places in the world. It was in many different languages. Many of the subscribers were very influential individuals in the field of academia. And she really inspired many different people, such as people in neuroscience, psychiatry, physics, chemistry, sociology. And so they helped popularize her her philosophies. And so among these people, there was Fritjof Capra, whose book called The Tao of Physics, where he analyzed the parallels of Einstein's quantum physics, and he correlated it with mysticism of the East, and also with Jungian psychology. And then right after that book came out, he then came out with another one called The Turning Edge, which he argued that science needs to develop concepts and insights of following holism and also cybernetic systems theory to solve all the different complex problems, including medicine. And there was one last book that she had me read, and was called the author was William Tiller, and he was a material scientist at the Stanford University, and he was exploring the intricate interrelationships between internal and external energies of the environment and of nature and the human organisms, and starting it to relate it to these frequencies and resonances that were going on. At this particular time, my favorite journal, called the Townsend Letter, published in Port Townsend, Washington, was something I was getting frequently, over several years. And in one of the spring issues in 1984, 30 years from before this academy started, there were many articles devoted to energetic medicine by many different authors. And by the spring of 1984, there was an article published by a person that was studying Reinhold Bohl's work in Germany. And I became fascinated to see that dentistry in Germany, as he viewed it, was to be looked upon where it can cause systemic illnesses, and he felt that it was perhaps the most overlooked thing on helping people medically. And so I decided that I would like to take a class. And so there was an announcement of a class that was going to be held in July of 1984 in Honolulu at Shriners Children's Hospital. As I was filling out the form, I noticed there was going to be a conflict, a logistical problem that was taking place, because my wife had rented a beautiful condominium on the shores of Lake Tahoe for our family to vacation. And the first weekend of the vacation, the class was going to be held in Hawaii. So I thought about it for a long time, how I was going to approach her. And so one of the things that that always gets her nervous is when I say, you know, I've been kind of thinking. And she knows that there's like a problem coming about. So she says, what are you thinking about? And I said, you know, I've been reading a lot of interesting articles by a Dr. Voll in Germany who says that dentistry can cause a lot of systemic illnesses in people. And she says, really? She says, how many dentists do you know that are doing this? And I says, none. And she says, well, she says, knowing you and how you like to unleash and unthink the traditional, conventional ways, I'm sure you'll find a way to make this thing work. And I approved. So I was really excited, you know, and I said, like, bingo, you know, we're home here. So that was exciting. So this scenario kind of reminded me of a thing that her and I tell this story about how we heard a famous motivational speaker from Dallas by the name of Zig Ziglar talk about unchaining the elephant. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but it's one that kind of tells about the situation that we were experiencing in our household. So we know that elephants have a long memory, and we know that elephants can solve problems that are almost human-like. So when the elephant is like born and it starts to waddle around, they throw a chain around the leg, and so the elephant can't move away from the log. So there's a big heavy log, and there's a chain to the elephant. The elephant can't move. The elephant gets bigger, still can't move. The elephant gets like to regular size, and it still can't move. But when it gets to a certain point as being very big, they could just take a small little peg and put it in the ground, tie the chain to it, and because the elephant is so conditioned by what has been happening over these years from the heavy log, it can't break loose from itself because it can't unthink itself from the chain. And this, to me, is like a phenomenon that has happened in this country. When we go to dental school, a lot of us are kind of hand-picked for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of the reasons why is that we kind of like to follow details. And so when we go to school, we have these real strict rules about how to do all these little procedures. And we have rules and we have regulations. And then when we get out of school, we have a code of ethics. And we have the Hippocratic Oath and things. And this is what we have to follow. So what happens is I speculate that the dentists are unable to unchain themselves from the log and because their mind is conditioned from all this brainwashing that we get into dental school. And this is why I speculate that we don't have more members in our academy, because this academy has everything to help the masses of the people. And like Dr. Margolis said, we could be perhaps more important to the health of people. I think that Dr. Felix Lau said the same thing, that we could be really primary people. And so the dentists really we have to find a way for the dentists to unchain themselves. So anyway, Joanne sends in the money, and I'm registered for the class. I get there on a Thursday, and at the hotel, and I kind of unpack, and I rest, and so forth. And as I decide to go get something to eat for dinner, I open up the room to leave, and lock it, and so forth, and clicking another door right across the hall from me was Dr. Ed Arana. I had not seen Ed Arana for 6 years. And it's like we look at each other and, wow, we're here together. So we go to dinner and we start to recapitulate our last 6 years. And lo and behold, he's reading the same things I'm reading. and reading other things, and it excites me to no end. And so then we go together to the class to see Vol at Shriners Hospital. Ooh, 5 minutes. We go to see Dr. Vol's class, and we're sitting in an amphitheater in the venue of this hospital. And we watch to see what Vol does. Vol has been set up with his Dermatron and different no-sode ampules and different organ preparations. And so the practitioners that are there at the class in Hawaii, they have brought patients to be evaluated by Dr. Vol. And so Dr. Vol, through an interpreter, would start to examine these patients with his electroacupuncture instrument. And he would then start commenting as he worked on different meridians, seeing what the patient had. So he did this for approximately 30 minutes, and then he would get up and he would tell through the interpreter what he found on this patient. And then after he was done, they would bring the patient in that was examined. The patient never heard this. And the patient would then tell the audience what they heard. I mean, what their problem was. And it was magnificent because Vol's diagnosis through the instrument was like 90% to what the patient said. So after we had seen this happen over and over again, when we went to dinner, we talked about, like, we need to kind of learn this more because we can see it's really going to be an important item to do. So we learned that there was going to be a class taught in Los Angeles on acupuncture testing and remedy testing. As we left, we decided we would both take that class, so it was going to be on 4 different months in 1984, in October, November, and then January 85. So we went to the first class, and when we were done with the first day's teaching, I took Ed out to dinner to my favorite place in Los Angeles called the Crab Pot on the foot of Washington Street right on Venice Beach. And we had a table on the second balcony looking out over the ocean, and we were speculating about Hawaii and what we were learning here. So our instructor who we had teaching that class in Los Angeles was hired by Walter Sturm of the Occidental Institute Research Foundation. And he told us that there was going to be a class by Heal in November of 1984 in Reno at the MGM Grand. And so we went to the class, and this was the first time that we started hearing these different theories of why acupuncture works from very many different disciplines. There was a hospitality room that Walter Sturm of the Institute had in that room. And after we had dinner, we would go up, just Ed and I, and no one else was there. Walter, who had led at least 10 different tours through Germany, was talking to us. And he was telling us that we probably should form an academy if we were going to learn this type of material. So this is where we started throwing around the name around what we would do. So with the aid of Dr. Stern and myself and Ed, we came up with the idea of biological dentistry. So at this meeting, we got from Heal the Materia Medica and a vast supply of different articles to go back to in the research. So Ed would come to my house every other week because he had a satellite practice in the town near me, and we would study the materials that we had gotten from Dr. Stern and also from the Heal Company. And so Ed would always come over, and he'd always bring salmon steaks, white zin, sourdough bread, and my wife would make the salad and make a vegetable while Ed and I would talk. We each got acupuncture instruments, RM10Ss, and we would measure each other and learn how to remedy test in these different sessions that we had. And that turned on, and then we got Joanne and Carol Arana really interested. And so what they started to do is we had put in $6,000 into a translation fund, and we had translations done. Carol was translating from a dictaphone to paper, and my wife was working on mailing list. We sent these flyers to the different homeopathic companies, and we sent flyers to various different organizations like the Academy of General Dentistry, acupuncture groups, and whatnot, and saying that we were forming an academy. We were going to have classes in 1986. So in 1985, Carol and Ed went to Germany, and they went to see Dr. Fritz Kramer. And Dr. Fritz Kramer was the first person that was teaching us, and the reason why we got him was because Walter Stern said that Kramer had a 4-volume set on dentistry, electroacupuncture, homeopathy training, and so forth. He had lectured with Wolf for 95 times, and he was the best person to have in the world. So Carol and Ed went to his home, convinced him to come here to the United States to teach us, and the rest is history.